This conference will now be recorded.
I thought was good. Hopefully everyone had a chance to review the minutes. I know I looked at it, they look good. Appreciate you pulling those together for us, Kathleen, as always. Comfortable with those, or if you feel like there's change that need to be made, if you could, I could get a motion to approve those.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes.
Okay, and I second it.
I will.
Jim, we've lost you again. I don't see Jim on my screen at all.
I don't see him either.
Okay.
Can y'all hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you
better.
pretty good.
Yeah, I hear
Okay.
you better for sure.
Okay, I disconnected from. All right. But I've lost my controls to share and record. I don't want to.
Welcome to.
Yeah, everything moved around. All right. So what do you want to do about Jim?
Why don't we?
Let me make sure I got the minutes right. Was that Ron made the motion and Alan seconded?
Yes.
Yes, I made the motion.
Okay.
Okay. So I think, Alan, you're the next in line if Jim isn't able to chair. So you want to just at least keep us moving through the first part of the agenda?
Sure.
I think now we have to pass.
Do you need to see the agenda, Alan, or do you have it?
I have it.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess the next thing up is strategies around landlord incentives and outreach with Karen and Crystal.
Okay, hi guys. Can everybody hear me since we're all having issues? Okay,
yes.
Okay. So we have some funding from the CARES Act for landlord incentives. A couple of different ways we can do it. We can do a sign-on bonus equal to 2 months rent. It does say you can do a security deposit equal up to 3 months rent, but we aren't allowed to do that here in North Carolina, so we'll just stick with 2. And if we move a tenant in under this agreement, we can pay the cost of repair damages that tenant may incur or the unit may incur that aren't covered by the security deposit. We can also pay the cost of extra cleaning or maintenance of a program participant's unit or appliances. For the sign-on bonus, we can do 1 month. We can actually even do 2, whatever helps. And they are allowed to use that money however they want. They can pocket it. They can use it to turn the unit. They can do repairs on other units. It's not tied to anything with the client. It just has to be with the client that moves in. And then again, repairing and cleaning assistance when they move out. And we can also help with the deep cleaning before the client moves in if that's necessary. So that is what we were doing for CARES incentive and incentives, or CARES funding and incentives. But other than that, with landlord engagement, we are working on a whole bunch of different creative ways to try to get landlords engaged. And hopefully we'll have a call next week. And I would love for anybody that's involved to be on the call so that we can educate landlords about our different programs, since some seem to be struggling, and then outline these incentives to hopefully incentivize some people to come back into our program, and then kind of hear what they're looking for. So I think that's like the most important thing when we're talking about landlord engagement. We need to understand what is good for them. And I'm sure it's not a certificate saying great job. It's financial information, things like that. So that is what we have going on. Sorry, Andrea, you're muted.
Andrea, you're muted.
Andrea.
Who
Jim's
else
back.
do we have? Is that you, Jim, on the phone?
Yeah,
Cynthia
can you hear me
Jeffries.
okay now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And who else do we have on the phone?
Cynthia
Yeah,
Jeffries.
did you hear,
Okay.
Kathleen, did you hear Jim rejoin?
Yes, I've got you.
Sorry about that.
So,
So I
Karen,
came in as we were talking about the landlord incentives. I guess one question, and you probably said this as I was trying to join, how many landlords do we have a panel of landlords we're trying to use, or how?
I have a list
are
of
we-
about 267 landlords, property owners, and property managers that I try to interact with as often as possible, but there's only about 100 that I have email addresses for that usually end up on these calls.
Right. Okay, that's a pretty broad segment. That's good.
Mhm.
So, Karen, of the incentives that you've been able to offer, are some of them more helpful? Are landlords attracted to them more than others? And with the incentives, have you noticed a difference in landlords' willingness to work with our clients?
Yeah, they have been more willing to work with us, and it's kind of been like the breaking point between whether, them saying no to a difficult client and then suddenly understanding they get some money that's not tied to anything specifically. Because, if it goes into security deposit, they already think they're going to lose that money when the tenant trashes the unit. So the sign-on bonuses have been really attractive to the landlords.
That's great.
And then coming up, like I'd said before, at the Bringing It Home conference in May, I will be with Social Serve and NCCEH presenting on landlord engagement. So they have brought some really cool ideas to our presentation. So I'm really excited about that.
So at this point, would you say you're just fact gathering, or are there specific requests that you're asking for from the landlords?
I'm sorry, I don't understand. I'm sorry.
In your calls
At
with
this
them,
point,
are you? Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
I think you were going to clarify. I'm just curious, in the calls that you're having with the landlords, is it just that you're trying to engage them and find out what their impediments might be? Are there requests that you're making to the landlords? I'm just curious how that engagement's working.
I'm not making any requests other than I usually call everybody once a week or so to find out if they have vacancies. But I send out quite a bit of emails telling them about programmings, things that might affect them, whether it's the real estate side or the property management side. And then I'm part of the property managers division, so I can stay engaged that way. So it's really just, offering information and services. And then we'll do calls every once in a while with, like we did with human resources a little while ago, just to keep them informed. I do like training for the ERAP fund so they can get their, recoup those rents that they're missing. Things like that.
Okay, thank you. All right, what other questions do we have?
Karen, if you could have any other tools that you think would help improve engaging landlords and renting to the soon to be formerly homeless population, what are the tools that you think we don't have that would be really helpful?
I hate to say, because it's going to sound negative, I think we need to improve the inspection process and the turnover process for the landlords. Whatever tools that would take is why we're losing a lot of them right now. So those sign-on bonuses or you have money to hold a unit is helpful because sometimes it takes so long for the unit to get through the inspection process. That's a big turnoff for landlords. So if we can streamline that, speed it up, get people moved in, I think we get a lot more back. And endless Girl Scout cookies to deliver. A big part of landlord engagement on my part that I try to do too is I spend a lot of time working on the tenants because I feel like if we are making sure their tenants are good tenants, then they'll be more likely to work with us. So we're trying to bring services on site for tenants that need help so that they can stay successful and be good stewards of their units in the communities.
Yes. Okay, what are the questions on this topic, Jenny? Okay, well, I appreciate that update. Again, sorry I was having some technical difficulties and had to come in kind of midstream there. If we can, I guess we could transition to the next topic then, Andrea or Kathleen. Appreciate you covering for me too while I was rejoining. I've got next on the agenda, Sharika was going to give us an update on the Coc Consultant. Sharika, are you there?
Yes. So the City of Winston-Salem, we have hired a consultant for the COC. The consultant is home-based, the Center for Common Concerns. They're a nationally recognized expert on homelessness and affordable housing and a skilled technical assistance provider located in San Francisco, California. They've been providing services and support to communities, assisting them with expanding their capacity to effectively address homelessness for over 30 years. We've hired them to do an analysis of the local needs and resources that we are using to address homelessness. They will use system mapping, gap analysis, and needs assessments to help us create strategic planning and also to evaluate our system and to help us improve the system that we currently have. So they'll be working with key stakeholders, individuals with lived experience and providers, and also the data that we have that we collect for our homeless management information system. So they'll be doing that to help us prioritize gaps or needs for improvement that we have in the system, and also give us just data and feedback on the need that they see. So they have started as of last week. They are currently in the process of reviewing our HMIS data, the different programs that we have, and reaching out to the providers and stakeholders to set up meetings. We plan to have a report from them, a full report, by August.
So Andrea, I guess this would be similar to what we did 5 or 6 years ago when I first started working with this group. We were just on the back end of the 10-year plan, and we were looking at next strategic plans. Would this be the next version of that, same type of work?
I'll let Sharika answer that, though. This has really been a city-driven process.
Yes. So this is
Okay.
focused more on the services that are provided within the COC. It will touch on the 10-year plan, the strategic plan that was created, but this is more focused on the overall services, accessibility, and housing, as far as like getting someone into housing, data, how accurate our data is, what type of data we collect, is focusing fully on the COC and how services are provided.
Okay, I see.
So I think the plan was more of an overall approach, as well as to affordable housing and things like that. But this was just specifically focused on those homeless services that we're currently providing and how we can improve those, and just addressing or identifying any gaps we may have so that we can fill those gaps.
So I think it sounds like this report will be really helpful to the COC partners in identifying how to improve the work that they're doing so that we can address the strategic goals in the plan that we currently have.
Okay. Thanks for that clarification. All right. Any other question for Sharika? Sharika, appreciate that update. We look forward to, I guess, August, you said. We're expecting to hear back or final report.
Yes, I'll be presenting again in August.
Great. All right. Well, thanks, Sharika. Well, Andrea, I'm showing the last 2 topics are you and then you and John Mack. So next was City Council Housing Summit discussion you had wanted to lead. So I'll just hand it to you.
Yes. So Kathleen, when she sent out the materials for the meeting, sent out the link to the City Council Housing Summit. Did everyone have a chance to look at that?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to take silence as yes, we did. I know some of you have because I've talked to you about it. But. So I just wanted to hold time in this meeting. If you listen to the whole meeting, right, the City Council is very focused. It's one of their highest priorities right now to address the housing problems that we're seeing across the city. And I think what you could see from the framing is the population that we are focused on, which are definitely below 50% of area median income and mostly below 30% of area median income, is a piece of that puzzle. And it's it's even a little smaller in that our piece is looking at people who are not housed at or below 50% of area median income. So I just wanted to hold some space today to collect people's comments on what they heard, what they saw from the City Council, but then also really to focus in on, as the city is looking at strategies to help improve housing and the availability of housing in our community, where do you think the work of this commission and of the Homeless Council fit into that, and what are the strategies we really want to put some energy behind and seeing implemented in the community?
Hi, this is Cynthia. That's a great question and something I think we really need to think about, but I'm not prepared at this point to be able to weigh in on it. But I think it's a great thing for us to think about.
Okay. Is there more information that would be helpful to you along the way thinking this through?
Yeah, but I don't know what that might be.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's fine.
Andrea, this is Jim. One of the things as I was looking at it, I mean, there was some good demographic types of information included in here, like chart on marriage rates, right, and the trend downward, which is no surprise. But what would be helpful would be, you still have dual income households. They may not be married, but they are, sharing a household, or they've created a household out, just not married. So there's probably some other statistics that would be useful to try to get at what really is a single income type of household versus dual income. And that's really, that may just be more my interest in understanding that, but that was one thing that I thought about as I was looking at it.
The other thing I'll point out, the best I can figure out, all of this data is pre-pandemic numbers. So when you're looking at sort of the framing of the problem, I mean, my reading of it and what I know of current sort of trends over the last couple of years is whatever you see in that data that was not working well, it is not working well even more, right? So I think one of the slides that stuck out to me as it impacts our work was the comparison between available units and who's renting them, right? So what you could see from that slide is we have a fair number of units that serve people at 80% of area median income, 50% of area median income, but who's renting those units? A lot of those folks are coming from higher income brackets that could afford different apartments, but are choosing to live in smaller or cheaper apartments. To such an extent that it is very hard for people for whom that is the highest affordability level that they have. They're not able to compete in that market. And so that really sort of struck me as part of the problem that our folks are seeing is that, when we have somebody, even if they're working a minimum wage job and they have steady income and they don't have any other problems, when they're competing against somebody who's making $17 an hour, that person's more attractive to the landlord, just on the income level. So.
Yeah, Andrea, I think one other thing that's playing into this is the current housing environment, where the prices of houses have just skyrocketed.
Mm-hmm.
And so that makes it hard for people to find low income housing in this kind of market. Now, I know that it's going to be like this for the foreseeable future. So I don't know, that it's not really a COVID related thing, I guess, but it's more of an inventory related situation.
Yeah, it's bad out there.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the challenges that Karen and the case managers are seeing is the inventory of apartments affordable to folks at or below 50% of area median income, even pre-pandemic, had so much pressure from higher income folks on it. And now what we're seeing post-moratorium is landlords who were renting at closer to fair market rates are raising those rates out of the fair market zone. And so they are no longer affordable. So that stock of what had been affordable to lower income folks is shrinking because the rental rates are going up so high.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Yeah, it seems pretty clear the root of it is that there's just a shortage of units.
Yeah,
I agree.
And,
so
and I don't know what impact the latest raise of interest rates are going to have on new buildings either of apartment complexes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, you'll probably see mortgage applications come down as interest rates increase, which will put more pressure on rental units.
Robert in the chat box had a comment about trying to get a map, I'm presuming, of where the different sort of affordability of housing is in the community. And I think I can get a map for site. It won't necessarily like pinpoint specific units, but it'll sort of show regions of the community where and their sort of average rents. Karen, the list that she keeps of available units, we do have mapped on the COC's website, that you can see where open units are that people could rent. And then Deb shared in the comment box that Forsyth County is on track for 10,000 evictions this year, and our normal eviction rate is about 3,000 a year. So we're looking at an eviction rate more than triple our regular pace of evictions.
Andrea, let me just interrupt for a minute. Who's the caller that just joined us? I'm trying to get names for the minutes. If you could identify yourself. All right.
So as you listened to the segments that were talking about possible solutions. Many of them were focused on development solutions. Were there solutions that you felt may be more applicable to our work that you might be interested in learning more about? You're all very quiet today.
Especially for the smaller properties. I'm wondering if, essentially partnering with somebody that does like modular homes, not trailers. I'm talking about actual, modular homes. If that could be used to A, speed the process of doing a build, B, lower the cost, because essentially the building comes on a truck and then is put together on site, so you don't have to nail every single board together, because that might, especially some of these properties that are basically a piece of dirt. If we could do something to speed and lower the cost of putting a actual home on the property, hello, that's another unit we can play with.
Andrew, to me, it's it's a good thought about the modular, but you still comes back to a developer. You need that done at scale, probably, which is going to mean a developer is going to need to be involved. I wonder if there's an opportunity to look at I could check with some of the folks I know at Truist, but there are different developers who specialize in affordable housing, right? HUD financing type projects.
Mm-hmm.
I just wonder if there might be something there. So I'll check on something.
Okay.
I don't know that it'll produce anything, but I'll just check and see from my sources if there might be something.
Okay. Well, and there's a number of developers, at least one in the area that's a nonprofit developer that is developing housing for folks with disabilities and older adults. There are some also local affordable housing developers. If you think it would be helpful, maybe for our meeting in April, we could put together sort of a panel of folks that build housing, to come talk about what their needs are and what would help them scale.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
And, because of course this goes back to this work I've been doing. There's so many apartment complexes that are here that need renovation. Is there a way to get funding for people that would renovate existing properties? Because when the developers come in and build something new, the places that are way at the end of Peters Creek don't have public transportation, and there's not a whole lot of units there. And we have so much housing. If we could figure out a way to preserve what we have. Like just yesterday, we found out that Northwood and Lakeside aren't taking Section 8 anymore. That's 450 housing units that are no longer available to our clients because I don't think we're taking care of people like we should be.
This is Cynthia. I'd like to develop a panel conversation.
Okay. We will definitely put that on the April agenda. I have to look at my calendar to remember where we are in the year. So, and I can add to that panel, to Karen's point, folks that do rehab work as opposed to just new builds.
Great.
Yeah, because
that sounds good.
Rehabs of the new builds are going to cost $30 million. Nobody has that money, so we got to figure out something else. Because all we're getting are no's from people like that.
Yeah. So just to give you a sort of perspective, the developers that I have talked to since the city council had this meeting have priced the mayor's 750 unit a year challenge at $32 million a year to build.
Wow.
To make up a
Yeah,
14,000 housing gap. Good God.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if there's developers who aren't really focused on Winston-Salem, Forsyth County, that might not know there's opportunity to create some developments and use low-income tax credits or something that could be appealing to some of the corporations around who are looking for those types of credits.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, there's definitely developers around. There are definitely developers who specialize in affordable housing. And I will reach out to some of them to talk about the challenges that they have had building specifically in Forsyth County, so that you can have a deeper understanding of what isn't happening here as opposed to what might be happening in places like Durham or Chapel Hill or Charlotte, where there has been a lot of energy and development in affordable housing.
That would be helpful.
Yep.
Yeah. And Andrea, I know it mentioned something about incentives in there, but I don't know that it was very detailed. But how about like property tax incentives? I mean, that's done all the time for corporations and stuff. I mean, what about for low builders that want to build low-income housing?
Yeah, so I think those are all tools that were on the table for the city to consider. And so I think over the next few months, what I'd like us to do is sort of think about of the options that are out there. And I think for our community to address the housing challenge that we have, it's going to take all hands on deck, all options on the table. But what are the options? What are the incentives that we think will most meet the needs of the population that we're serving? So I know that part of the presentation was on the difference between the 4% and the 9% tax credit programs. And so, if you can get a 9% tax credit build, that's a very different kind of economic impact on the build and the kind of gap that it can fill. Gap meaning the difference between the cost to build and what the rents will cover, than a 4%. And so, talking about how do we then have the conversation in the community and advocate that projects that may be in the community that are getting a benefit like the 9% tax credit really be focused on serving people who are gonna need that kind of support in order to be able to afford the housing. So.
Yeah, I think your panel would be very helpful to hear what the challenges have been from the developer's point of view in Forsyth County, Winston-Salem.
Okay. I will definitely work on that for next month. Any other thoughts or reactions to the information that was presented to the City Council? Okay. I think that the other piece of the conversation that I've been very attuned to is the difference in investment between single-family development and multifamily development. Because for most of our population, they are looking at multifamily developments. Multifamily development is another word for typically rentals. So it could be apartment buildings, duplexes, quads, and things like that. And so that's another Forsyth. I mean, the other thing that really struck me in that presentation at the very beginning of the presentation was how successful Forsyth County has been in homeownership and investing in strategies that help even low and moderate income folks access homeownership opportunities. But despite that investment in what is one of the best wealth building mechanisms, we are one of the lowest rated communities as it relates to our poverty rate. So although we have a lot of home ownership, we are not seeing that translate into addressing issues related to poverty. So I think there is a lot of room in the conversation for what is the housing look like in order to help give people the support from housing that they need in order to then address the other barriers to getting out of poverty. Okay. If there's no other thoughts, we will definitely, for our April meeting, put together a panel of developers to come talk with us.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Okay, sounds good.
So, Andrew, do you want to transition to the next topic?
I sure will. And I will apologize publicly. It was my intent to invite John Mack to come do this with me, but I had so many other things every time I talked to John Mack, I forgot to keep asking him to come talk with us today about street outreach. But one of the things I did want to just sort of bring to the commission's attention, I know we've talked over the last few months about the numbers of folks we have sleeping outside. So the most recent report that I got yesterday on the numbers of folks in the street was 236 people sleeping outside. So again, this is a pretty significant increase over pre-pandemic levels, but it has sort of leveled out over the last 6-7 months at around between 220 250. Our street outreach capacity has not increased at all. So we have Cities with Dwellings has, I think, 1.5 folks that do street outreach. The empowerment team has 2 people on it right now, only one of them who is able to go out and do literal outreach on the street. And then we have 2 folks connected to coordinated assessment that go out once a week with the street outreach teams to make sure that people are connecting into coordinated assessment. And that's the extent of our capacity for street outreach. And so I just wanted to have a discussion and sort of gather your thoughts about other avenues, other thoughts about how we increase our ability to reach people, both to connect them to existing services, but also ways to sort of develop services specifically for this population of folks that's been growing over the last couple of years.
So, Andrea, just not being as familiar with it, help me understand what we have today and how it differs from what we've had in prior years.
In terms of numbers of folks on the street or capacity to serve them?
Capacity.
So our capacity is pretty much the same. The biggest difference over the last, so cities, prior to Cities with Dwellings being founded in about 2012-13, the only street outreach that the homeless service system had really came from the Empowerment Project. And that project, at different points in time, has had 1 or 2 people out on the street on regular basis. And then when Cities with Dwellings started forming in about 2012-13, they had a lot of energy and effort into street outreach. And I think that is still there, but what they were doing before 2 years ago started receiving funding. So before it was an all volunteer activity. Now they're starting to receive some COC funding to support that work, but it didn't necessarily increase the number of human beings that were doing the work. It just increased the number of people who were being paid to do the work. Which is a good, I'm not knocking that. That's actually a very good thing. Because their street outreach folks were working 60, 70 hours a week out of the passion in their heart and not being compensated for it. So, I think some of what we've talked about in the past is the challenges of what brings people to the street, having to do a lot with combinations of lack of a support system that can help them with doubled up opportunities, but also mixed in that is combinations of mental health and substance use issues. So we're seeing a lot of that on the street. I know the city has been working to increase mental health street outreach, very specifically for that population. But just wanted to see if folks had other ideas about services that might be out there or opportunities to help support what capacity we do have for street outreach. And then also,
I guess I'm just wondering if there might be an opportunity with any religious organizations, churches.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but I just wonder if that might be a potential to help.
Mm-hmm. So we can definitely reach out to there are definitely some faith communities that are engaged in serving homeless folks in various capacities. I don't know how much of that is people come to them for help or how much they go out to people. There are a number of faith communities that go out and may provide often socks and sleeping bags, or they may provide a meal once a week or once a month. So coordinating with them, I think, is something that is a big opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Well, folks, think of other opportunities or in your work if you come across opportunities that you think might be a good either partnership or a good opportunity for us to pursue resources to expand the work around street outreach in the community. It is something that we are looking at because it is a pretty big need right now. And I think, obviously that's balanced with, right, we have a very hard time moving people into housing. And I think the other piece of this equation, which we'll find out, I think we'll see some movement over the next few months, depending on what happens with the coronavirus, is around shelter capacity. And the other thing that we'll have at the April meeting that will help you see some of the demographic shifts is the point in time count will be finalized by then. So we'll have Laura come and review the point in time count numbers with you. And I think we were looking earlier this week at preliminary data. And what was interesting to me, this year's count is one of our higher counts historically, but not dramatically so, given the rise in the street population. So a lot of that so there's definitely some shift that happened between shelter capacity and who's sleeping outside. So as shelters are able to maybe start taking more folks in, we may see that impact how many people are outside. So, Robert, we do know where everybody is sleeping. Well, we know where everybody we know about is sleeping. And so the street outreach teams do keep a by name list of everybody that they interact with. We monitor sort of where they tend to spend most of their time, where we find folks, and where people, if we are not identifying them where they are sleeping, then we will ask them. If they'll let us know, we will track that, but we don't share that. And then Deb shared in the comments the possibility for using local universities for possible internships related to street outreach.
With HUD funding, they have to be clinically certified or have to have clinical certifications and licenses for HUD funding.
Okay, if there's nothing else, that's all that I have for today.
Okay. Appreciate that. And we'll give that some more thought, Andrea, on a couple of these different topics. And so nothing else for the agenda today? That was all I saw on the agenda as well.
Yeah, I think that's all there is on the agenda today.
All right. Well, I appreciate everybody joining. Sorry I had some problems at the beginning getting connected, but I think the next meeting will be a month out. That's
yes,
right,
it
Kathleen,
should be.
you probably got the date. I'll be on the
Yes,
agenda.
it's the third Thursday of the month.
It'll be April 21st.
April 21st. Okay. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, I guess we can adjourn the meeting. I appreciate everybody joining.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.